You need to fill your soul and to figure out what that is. If that's spending time with your kids and cooking, then you need to make time for that.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. So this episode, I am visiting with Sharrah Stevens. And Sharrah is actually an influencer. Her popularity started on YouTube, where she has an established community of loyal followers interested in her interior design expertise and belief that everyone can live their home no matter the size or budget. She and her husband are originally from California and decided to relocate to Tulsa in 2020. And then just recently made an announcement that they are moving to Nashville in January. So she has a lot going on. They have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And since she's talked about even starting YouTube in college and how long she's been doing it and everything that has been filmed and shared over the years, including the growth of her family. So during this visit, she shares about her love of motherhood and how this role has shifted her focus, as well as the importance of being family focused during this season of life. I feel like this is a special conversation. Sharrah opens her heart about a lot of different things, including what she has been working on lately. And so you guys enjoy this episode with the sweet Sharrah Stevens. I just want to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you with us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So we actually met from a mutual friend who is just darling, and we attended a local Tulsa event.
I know, we went tunnel traveling together.
Yes. And wasn't that fun? That was my first time to do it.
Same. I know. I thought that was so cool. I was trying to figure out where we were above ground while we were underground, but I couldn't ever really figure it out. Yeah. We'd enter one building and then we would end up in another building somehow, but traveling underground, which was so cool.
Yes.
I mean, talk about making that entertaining. Because
Yeah.
tunnels could be a little boring, I think, in their nature. It's just a tunnel, but it was just fascinating.
Yes.
How she was very animated, and I thought she did a great job.
Yeah. And that's how we connected. Yeah. So here we are, and I kind of got to visit with you a little bit then.
Yes.
And then we've kind of reconnected, and I've been following you on social media.
Yeah.
But I want others to get to know you and here in Tulsa and beyond. So if you'll just tell people a little about yourself.
I have 2 little boys, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And a dog named Scout. She's a Labradoodle, and my husband Tyler. And we all moved here. Well, actually, we moved here before my kids were born. They're now Okies. They're officially Okies. But we used to live in California, in San Diego, and also in LA. And we moved here in 2020, and I just have loved Tulsa ever since. It's just such a wonderful city. I mean, so many people, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about us moving here, but it's just so funny that people in California or in San Diego, they're like, why are you moving to Tulsa? I'm like, have you ever been? And most people are like, no.
Thank you.
I've never been. I'm like, well, that's your problem.
Yep.
You don't think that Tulsa is amazing unless you've been here and you just see it for yourself. So anyway, we did go on a little journey to figure out where we were going to move, and Tulsa was the city we picked, and we loved it. So anyway, we moved here to Tulsa. I'm an interior designer, and I'm also an influencer. Started on YouTube about 10 years ago. And just really with the heart and intention to help women make their homes beautiful, and just wanting to teach women there's certain principles that if you can understand those principles of interior design, you can really transform your home. And my husband actually always calls it kind of like therapy by interior design, because I do think that a beautiful home can change your life. A space that reflects your style, that's clean, that is not cluttered, and that just looks beautiful. And that's obviously, everyone has their own definition of beauty. But a home that is well put together and looks beautiful, I think really impacts your mood. It impacts your functionality, especially during 2020 when everyone was working at home. It just really does impact how you function and kind of like, I think, the happiness of your family. So that's kind of one of the reasons I am so passionate about it. And I started on YouTube, like I said, about 10 years ago, making videos all about teaching people how to do that, and then kind of made a business out of it, which has been really fun. So online, on Instagram and on YouTube, we just share our family. Our family's grown over the last 3 years, and our kids are just so sweet and lovely and just make us laugh every day. And so I've kind of transitioned a little bit with my content, if you will, and kind of adding more family and motherhood and homemaking to my content recently, in addition to interior design. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of what I do, and I just feel very blessed to have a really positive, awesome community online. I think that's very rare, but I just feel like I have best friends online, and I've been online for so long. I mean, I literally, my college dorm room apartments, decorating those are on YouTube. My first apartment by the beach was decorated on and put on YouTube. My proposal is on YouTube. My wedding, we did a 25 episode series about wedding planning, and the whole leading up to the wedding, it was called Wedding Wednesdays. My mom and I both did that. So my whole life is on YouTube, which is like such a interesting, kind of weird, rare thing. When we started YouTube, it was kind of weird still. It wasn't a cool thing to be a YouTuber. Like, I remember when I met my husband at a party in Manhattan Beach, a barbecue, he asked me what I did, and I was a YouTuber, but I was embarrassed of it. And I had told him I was in marketing. What's funny is he told me he was in marketing, but he actually worked for a YouTube agency, which is essentially like a management company for YouTubers. But he also didn't say YouTube. I didn't say YouTube, because at the time it was just kind of like people didn't really get YouTube. It was very new that you were able to make a living off of it. So it was kind of like a weird hobby people had. And it has obviously now it's grown to be this thing that, like, I've heard one of my friends is a first grade teacher, and she's like, all the kids want to be YouTubers in my class. And what the heck's going on? I'm like, I know, it's very much a thing now to be a YouTuber. So we were kind of ahead of the trend, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like a lot of my students in my TCC class, Tulsa Community College class, also want to be YouTubers.
Yes. Yeah, so, I know.
Yeah, you were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I don't do trick shots or anything like that, which is what all the kids usually when they say YouTubers, that's what they want to be. Yeah, so I'm not really cool in their eyes probably, but we have our own category that we thrive in, so that's fun.
Yeah. So I'm still getting to know you and all that you have done, and I actually learned about your move to Tulsa from somebody at your a party we were recently at that you had for the Stone Cottage, and we'll talk about the Stone Cottage. But I thought this was so interesting. The two ladies who know your mom mentioned how that you went on kind of an adventure with your family.
And that's also on YouTube. You can watch that whole journey. We filmed the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
I need to watch that.
Yeah, so when this was in 2019, we had decided that we wanted to leave California. My husband and I wanted to leave, and my mom, we had started this new business together, and so she was going to move with us. And so the three of us kind of went to all these different cities. We actually had started with a list of 25 cities that we were all interested in, and we knew we could never go to all 25, so we actually worked with a relocation consultant who we told like all the things we wanted from a city, and he kind of gave us those 25 cities that kind of he thought had those. And then from those, we narrowed it down to 5, and we decided we were going to travel to all 5 cities and meet with a real estate agent and just like try to see the most of that town that we could and see what the homes were like, and then make a decision. And all 3 of us had to agree, which was kind of like, who knew if that was going to happen, because you have 3 different people. So we went to Boise, Idaho. We went to Charleston, South Carolina. We went to Dallas and to Austin. And then we went to Tulsa, and we were supposed to go to Nashville. But the day, so we went to all those places before 2020. Actually, Tulsa, we went in January of 2020. And then in March of 2020, we were supposed to get on a plane and go to Nashville. And the day that our flight was taking off was the day before the country shut down from the pandemic. And it was funny, my mom and I still were like, no, we should still go. It'll be fine. Well, this is very early on before everything shut down. And my husband was like, guys, I don't know. They just shut down the NBA, and that has literally never happened. And he was like, he was adamant. He was like, the NBA is like not playing. Like, we cannot leave our city because we're not going to be able to get home. So we ended up not going. And sure enough, like the next day, all travel was canceled. It was that lockdown season. So I'm very happy that we listened to my husband and did not get on a plane. But anyway, so we never saw Nashville. And even with Tulsa, we actually only came here kind of as a favor to one of our good friends in LA. My husband and I used to live in Hermosa Beach when we were early married. And some of our best friends in our Bible study, the husband went to ORU. So he would always talk about Tulsa and would always say, oh my gosh, when we all have kids, we should all move to Tulsa. And we're like, we're never moving to Oklahoma. You are crazy. We all lived at the beach in LA, like living the life. Yeah. Not the life when you have kids, but the life when you're like, you know, early married or single. Everyone's renting a shoebox for a fortune. Mm-hmm. But he would always say, you know, whenever we all want to settle down and whatever, I'm telling you guys, Tulsa is really cool. So as we're going on this journey, we were like, you know, if we're going to all these places, if we're flying right over Tulsa, like we really should stop and see it, because Chad's going to just, you know, whatever, think that we're crazy. And they were already talking about how they were going to move there. So we decided to come by. We brought our whole team at the time here because we wanted some of those people to move with us. And we thought, okay, they'll probably go to any of the places, but Tulsa is the biggest unknown. So they need to see it in order to decide if they're going to move here. None of them moved here, unfortunately. But we brought them all to Tulsa. We stayed at the Harweldon down the street from us. And met Teresa, who was wonderful. She got us on the news while we were here, which was hilarious. We had all these planning meetings while we were here. And that was, when we came to Tulsa, we were just blown away by how nice and welcoming everyone was. Because coming from California, that is not the type of treatment that you get in most places. Like in Boise, Idaho, they had a mayor that ran on a slogan of keep the Californians out.
Oh, okay.
California, when you are leaving California trying to go somewhere else, I think people are very weary of that just because of what happens to the housing market and politically how things can change. So I think that they just, you know, they have their assumptions on things and usually are not very welcoming. But Tulsa was like, wait, there's all these people that think Tulsa's cool. This is amazing. Come check it out. It is cool. Like, we want everyone to know. Mm-hmm. Not too many people to know, but we want some people to know.
Yes.
So anyway, we were just blown away by how nice everybody was. And we were so impressed by how beautiful it was. The trees. Like, I just never really thought that Oklahoma would have so many trees. And even hills. I mean, they're not mountains, but I just pictured flat, dry, tumbleweed lands everywhere, truly. Which is so naive of me. But coming from San Diego, it's just like, that's what you see in the movies. And so that's what you think. But it was so lush and green. I mean, January it was not lush and green, but I had seen pictures, and we ended up coming back. So the country shut down in March, and I also that day found out I was pregnant with our first son, Sawyer. Wow. So we were like, oh, wow, we have 9 months, and then we're going to have a baby. So if we're moving, we need to figure this out. We also, a big thing for us moving was just like housing costs and cost of living. Leaving San Diego, obviously the market was just so crazy. And we were very impressed when we came to Tulsa and could just see the neighborhoods we could afford to be in here versus what our options were in California were just drastically different. And even in like Charleston, it was very similar to San Diego. Boise was very similar to San Diego. Austin was very similar. I really liked Dallas as well, but I did not like how busy it was. There was just it felt like LA. It just so many people and a lot of traffic. And so we were kind of trying to get out of that. So we ended up coming out to Tulsa here in April. And then again in June to look at homes. And when we came in April, we were just like, wow, this is amazing how lush and beautiful, because everything was blooming. And yeah, it was a really great experience. But we found a home and we packed up our stuff and we moved to Tulsa.
Okay, so the three of you agreed on Tulsa.
Yeah, all three of us were just like so impressed. We felt like the city kind of rolled out the red carpet with Teresa Knox being so wonderful towards us and so welcoming. We had a great realtor, Mike Keys, and he was so awesome and just helped us. It was a crazy market at the time too. I think we had put in offers on like 2 or 3 houses, and we were in bidding wars on houses, which Mike had said at the time doesn't often happen in Tulsa, but it was just such an interesting season in the world in 2020 that things were just kind of crazy. But he was so helpful and determined to help us find our dream house. And I think the reason we all were able to agree, and when I came to your house too, I mentioned this, we all had this picture, the same picture in our mind, which was we all wanted to live on a street that looked like the Father of the Bride Street. Do you know that movie?
Yeah, I do.
With the trees and the beautiful home. And I mean, in California, to live in a neighborhood like that, I mean, it's like just insane. It's just unrealistic, truly. And so we thought, man, if we could find a city that had that type of street that we could all live on, that would just be so cool. And when we came to Tulsa, we drove. I mean, you just drive around Midtown, and we just were like jaws on the floor, all 3 of us. Like, this is where they filmed that movie, I think. It's so beautiful. But your street looks like that. The streets that we ended up moving to look like that. The trees here are just so beautiful. And that had a big impact, honestly, in addition to the fact that the housing market was so much more affordable. The people were so kind. And also Tulsa Remote. We had found out about the Tulsa Remote program. And so that was a very unique, honestly, what it showed us was there are people in this city that are so committed and interested in seeing it grow. And that's really cool to be a part of. To be a part of a city that's thriving, that has so much potential. You look at what happened in Austin and Nashville, and you think, man, that would have been cool to be there in the beginning when that all started. Now those cities are huge and kind of full of people, but to be a part of a city in the early stages that has so much potential and just so much growth and movement, and we really saw that here in Tulsa. And like I said, we went to all these other cities after Tulsa, and I remember we would meet with like some city commissioner. We were bringing our business to town too. So that also, we met with some certain people in that realm. But after those trips, we're like, we all keep talking about Tulsa and how great Tulsa is. I'm pretty sure that's a sign that we need to really go give it a shot. People thought we were crazy in California when they heard we were moving here. But I'm like, come visit.
I feel like this is almost like the YouTube where you were one of the first people.
Yeah, right?
You're one of the first people.
It was very much a God thing that we decided to leave California before the pandemic happened. Because I think a lot of people left California and New York during the pandemic because they were stuck in these tiny apartments. No one could do anything. And you're not really able to use the amenities of the city you're paying to live in during that season. And so a lot of people there was this huge surge of people moving. And I think it also showed people that always had these closed-minded thoughts about middle America. Like, wow, there are other beautiful places to live in other states besides California or besides New York City. We discovered that before the rest of California did, I feel, because we were planning it before anything ever happened in 2020. And so we were just kind of ready to go. Whereas a lot of people discovered it halfway through the pandemic and moved toward the end of that year. I do feel very blessed that God kind of put that on our hearts to think about moving before the craziness happened. But yeah, I mean, people ask all the time, are you happy? Like online on my Instagram, there's a lot of people that are considering moving and they're terrified because they're like, well, you're leaving the place you've only known. My mom has grown up in San Diego her whole life. For me, that was where I lived. I lived there and in LA, but it is hard to move away from a city that's like everyone perceives as paradise, and you've lived there your whole life. But I cannot tell you, like, every day we are just so grateful to have found this city and to move here and to live here, because we have found, like, I just feel like God put us in the most perfect neighborhood. We have wonderful neighbors, and who, like, when we first moved here, they wanted us to meet some of the other neighbors. It's hard to move in the middle of a pandemic because you don't know if you're supposed to meet your neighbors, right? Everyone's kind of afraid, so you're like, I don't want to go knock on their door and introduce ourselves because that's going to be probably offensive to some people or, make people worried. So it was such an uncertain time. And we'd never been through this before. So what are you supposed to do? But yeah, these neighbors were like, hey, we're going to host a little gathering for 2 other neighbor couples, and we're going to do it outside so you can meet them, because we want you guys to, like, meet our neighbors and be a part of our community. And I just thought to myself, where on earth else does this happen? Like, the day we moved in, these same neighbors came across the street and brought us a cheese board and wine. They brought their whole family. The movers that were moving us in were like, what in the world is going on? This stuff only happens in the movies. And I'm like, no, this is what happens in Tulsa. People here are just so nice. Yeah. They are just, and it's a slower pace of life, I feel. And so they just like, your neighbors. Like, I grew up in the same house my whole probably 15 plus years in San Diego, and we didn't know any of our neighbors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I knew one, but hardly. I mean, you knew them because they had a kid that went to the same school that I did, and we did carpool for a year, but people just don't talk. They don't, it's just, I think it's just people are, it's so much more expensive to live in California. And so you're so much busier trying to achieve. And maybe this is my assumption. Either people are just genuinely meaner in California, which that's really harsh to think, or the pace of life has to be so much faster to keep up with the cost of living there, is what I think. And, in places like this, it's just people have different priorities and they put relationships first because is it the South? Is it the Midwest? I don't know. That's always a debate. What do you think, Tulsa?
I feel like it's Southern, just in hospitality. Yes. But I would say I just say Middle America. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Because we kind of are.
I know. That's why it's, I guess, controversial, because people online are like, no, it's the Midwest. No, it's the South. I think if you have an accent in Tulsa, it's a Southern accent. So I consider it the South. So
I remember, when I met you and your husband, I remember thinking they are the nicest people. And I think I even said, you guys are so nice. You fit in great here. Yeah. So thank you. Good. Because I mean it as a compliment. But you said something a minute ago. You said it was a God thing. Yeah. Coming here. And so that was a good segue, because I want to, kind of talk about you going to seminary school. That I was surprised when I saw that in a story. And I shouldn't say I was surprised, because I feel like you have such a presence, like a peaceful presence, just a light about you. That's maybe the best description. But I thought when you said that about, I don't know if you guys knew I went to seminary school, and I thought that is it. Aww. That is anyway. But
thank you.
I love that about you and appreciate that about you. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, but then how you got into interior design. Yeah. From that.
I know. Totally. Yeah. So I had grown up, my dad was a pastor, my grandpa was a pastor, my brother is now a worship pastor. So very much grew up in the church and kind of just had a very childlike faith my whole life. And just believed, obviously, everything that I was taught. And like the sun was hot and God was real. And that was just so evident and true in my life, my whole life. And then I remember I was in high school and I had met a boy that I wanted to date, but he was kind of an atheist. He wasn't, I wouldn't say like a hardcore atheist, but he just was kind of like, well, I'm a smart person, so I don't really believe in religion. And I remember thinking to myself, I know I'm not supposed to be unequally yoked as a, junior, thinking this. And I remember telling my parents, I want to have a controlled rebellion. And I said, I want to date this boy because I don't quite understand if this guy allows me to do my thing and be, a person of faith and go to church, and he's not telling me I can't go to church, like, why can't I date him and also do my thing and be a Christian? And crazily enough at this age, I knew if I don't figure this out now, I'm clearly not going to marry him as a junior in high school. But if I don't figure this out now, I'm going to end up being curious when I am of marrying age, and then end up doing that then, and then falling in love, and then it'll be much more complicated. So I should just figure it out now. But I knew I wasn't going to, drink or sleep around or anything like that. And so that was the controlled part, was I wanted them to know I wasn't going to fall off the deep end. I just wanted to figure out why I couldn't remain who I was, but also, be interested in somebody who had their own, beliefs and things. And so I went through this whole dating process, and he had a lot of questions. We would talk about our faith a lot. And his dad even was a scientist, but his dad grew up Catholic, but his dad would always say, are you taking him to church? You should take him to church. Get him to church. Like kind of as not a joke, but endearing, like, yeah, let him go to church with you. Why not? And so it was a very cute relationship in high school. It didn't last, but through that relationship, I learned that he had a lot of really good questions that I did not have answers to. This might get a little too theological for your podcast, but it was questions like, if God is a good God, why do bad things happen to good people? And if, talking about scripture and the Bible was written so long ago, how do you know what actually happened was accurately copied down in the Bible? Like, how do you trust what's there to be truth and actually, happened? And even if it did happen, how do you know that they copied it down accurately? Because it's, handwritten, and, people lie all the time, and people could have made stuff up and put stuff in there that wasn't true. And so anyway, I had all these questions and I had no answers. My parents didn't really know how to answer it. And I kind of started to feel a little bitter and thinking, man, if I have to turn my brain off at the door before I go to church, I don't really want to be a part of that, because God gave me this great brain and I can't even think about these questions. Like, should I feel shame that I have all these curiosities and questions, and how do I get them answered? And is the answer, stop asking those questions and just pretend like everything's fine? And so I kind of knew if I went to a secular college and pursued that I would probably fall away from my faith, because I knew I wouldn't really find answers there. And so I had decided I wanted to go to a Bible college to kind of study other religions. It's a Bible college, so it's a Christian school, but they do have like religious classes where you can learn about other religions. You can also take apologetics, which is kind of like defending the faith. You can learn about theology. You can learn about, there's all types of classes like that. And so I decided to go there. And what I learned in that process was it took more faith to be an atheist than it did to be a believer, when you actually look at the facts and the details that exist in history, in manuscript evidence, in even certain scientific evidences that we have. And anyway, and I could go on and on about that, but it really gave me confidence. You can't know everything. There is an element of faith that still exists. You can't see God with your own eyes. And so there is faith that exists within Christianity, but there is so much evidence that is there if you want to learn it and you want to know it. It's like God gives these little breadcrumbs for you to see, to have that, to just say like, I got you and I love you. And so that was a really special time in my life that I'll always be so grateful for. And it actually wasn't even an accredited school. Have you seen the movie Jesus Culture? It came out about a couple months ago. Anyway, it's about the guy that started the school that I went to. It was just a Bible college. So it's a 2-year program. I got associates in theology. And I could have gone, you don't take any of your basic classes there. So I could have gone to get all of my basic credits and done like a bachelor's in biblical studies, which I was kind of in process of doing. I did about halfway. And then I started working for my mom, which leads us to the interior design part of the story. So in San Diego, my mom had a design firm for about 30 years. And in 2008, when the market crashed, she had all of her clients put their jobs on hold because everyone was in such uncertain times back then when it came to the housing market, when it came to renovating, all of that. And so she had all this time on her hands, and she was like, well, I've always wanted to make these like slideshows of my projects. And she ended up, my brother that year came home with this beautifully wrapped package, and my mom's like, how in the world did you learn how to wrap this package? He was in college. And he was like, I watched a video on YouTube. And remember, this is 2008. YouTube started 2007, so it's very new. And my mom's like, what is YouTube? So they start looking at these videos, very boring. My mom's very out of the box and lively and fun. And she's like, I could totally do this better. I should make these videos. And my mom is like the gift wrap queen. So she started making these videos on how to wrap a gift and how to sew a button on your jacket and all. She decided that she was going to make these slideshows of her projects, before and after projects. Anyway, fast forward a few years, her videos kind of got a little more advanced. I would edit her videos. My brothers would edit her videos of her projects, and people, this is before anyone was doing anything about interior design. So making interior design content was new. And after I got done with Bible college, I came back, and then my mom, at that time people were really monetizing their content, and my mom wasn't at the time. And so my job was to help her with marketing in that realm, and help her kind of get traction on trying to monetize her content and work with brands and all that stuff, which I had experience from being millennial and kind of understanding the market and the industry. And that led to me starting a channel and kind of doing more DIY approach to interior design with the $1 million principles of interior design, but lower budgets. Whereas my mom's projects were all her clients' projects, which were $1 million projects. So it was kind of aspirational was her stuff, and then more not educational, but I was giving more like budget-friendly, approachable ways to do that in your own home, like covering your ugly granite with a contact marble paper or something. And it was always renter-friendly because I was always renting at the time. So that's kind of how I got started on YouTube, and everything I knew about interior design I'd learned from my mom, just naturally living in a beautiful home all the time, and seeing my mom and running her business and all that. And so I never went to school for it. She actually never went to school for it. She learned everything from her mom. So it was very much a generational kind of passed down thing, which was really cool. And then that just kind of grew, and my personal brand kind of took off. And so with social media and just sharing life and projects, and like I said, very much creating content that was very renter friendly. Up until we moved here, we always rented. And in fact, a fun fact, in living in Hermosa Beach, my husband and I, our rent for a 500 square foot apartment, back house apartment over someone's garage on an alley with no washer dryer, no, we did have a washer dryer in the garage, but no dishwasher, no AC, no parking. Our rent for that was the same. It was actually a little bit, like maybe $100 less than our mortgage for a 5,000 square foot home here.
Okay, that is
and
unbelievable.
That was 5 years ago, so it's probably doubled by now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when you're living, and I will say we lived 1 block from the beach, so we lived in a great area, but we never went to the beach because we were so busy, and we just weren't really. We realized we're not really beach people. We're paying premium to live by the ocean, and we don't really use it. So, anyway. So yeah, that's kind of the transition from Bible college into interior design. I never really wanted to have a career in ministry. I actually, after Bible college, I started a fashion blog because I thought, my ministry could just be sharing my love for the Lord and some of the things I've learned just through organic life, and kind of trying to find a common denominator with other women, which would be fashion, and doing it through a blog. And then that was really fun. But when I started making videos, it wasn't about fashion. It was more about my home, my apartment, little DIY projects I was doing. And that category, that content just really took off on YouTube. So ended up doing more of that than the fashion stuff. And it was great. I love it.
Okay. So one of the ways that you work with your mom is with something called kin woven. And so I wanted you to explain what kin woven is and how it is beneficial for people.
Yeah. So in 2019, my mom kind of wanted to retire her design firm. I had my own kind of brand and my own channel that I was creating content on about interior design, and she had her own channel and content that she was creating interior design. But she really wanted to lean more into the content side as opposed to the in-person interior design firm that year. And we both really had this passion for empowering women to do it themselves. Obviously it's great to hire an interior designer, no bash on hiring an interior designer, but not everybody can. And that doesn't mean that you have to live in a home that you hate, that you can still make your home beautiful all by yourself if you know a few tricks. And we both were just very passionate about being able to empower people to do that by themselves. And so we came together in 2019 and we created Kin Woven, which was a name we came up with, kin meaning family. Also this passed down thing with my grandmother, myself, or my mom, myself, and just kind of, it was very much familial concept, but also we felt very tied and woven with our millions of followers around the world and people that would watch our content. And so we made this name, and it represents kind of exactly our hearts behind what we were going to do. And we decided we wanted to make kind of instructional videos and courses for people in a really easily to digest way that could walk them through kind of an 8-step process of how to tackle any room in their home, whether they were decorating it or renovating it. We kind of go across the whole gamut. So we wanted it to be affordable, we wanted it to be accessible, and we wanted it to be really organized based on like different courses, and there's different lessons, there's videos that go with each lesson, there's a workbook. So that was kind of our baby that we worked on in the beginning. And since then, we've launched 2 courses. You can access both of them on our website, kinwoven.com. I believe it's courses.kinwoven.com. And yeah, so the first one was life-changing home design, and then the second one was Weekend Warrior, and that one is specifically about kind of how do you decorate your bedroom in a weekend and to completely change your bedroom and the way it looks in 3 days. So that was a really fun one. But yeah, we're still making videos on YouTube. You know, those are always free. But there's only so much you can say in a YouTube video. You know, you only have 10, maybe 20 minutes. That's kind of the longest you should really do on YouTube. So we have a lot of small bite-sized free stuff on YouTube that is really great to watch, but it was really for people that kind of want, okay, we're taking all of our thoughts and all of the knowledge that my mom has from her business, that I have from my experience and my business and having some clients, and how do we create this so that it's accessible no matter your budget, no matter your stage of life, if you've got kids, if you don't have kids, if you're renting, if you're an empty nester. And really, like, our biggest thing was approaching it from a position of sitting in the space and trying to picture how do you want to use the space? How do you want it to make you feel? So we actually go through like a lot of exercises within the workbook that are kind of therapeutic.
Wow.
That's more like, how is the space making you feel right now? And kind of we give you a word bank. You can kind of find those words easily. And then kind of trying to find reasons why it's making you feel that way and trying to help you pinpoint, is it because it's dark? Is it because the layout doesn't fit your family? Do you have little kids and so you just have no organization options and you just have a mess everywhere? Like, what are the things that make you hate that room? And then we kind of have you picture, okay, if it was in a perfect world, what do you want to do in this room? Do you want to host your Bible study? Do you want to have your family over all the time? Do you want to have a spot you can read your book every night with some tea? You know, just like, what is it that you want to do that would make you happy in this space, and picturing that, and then jotting down the words, how you want it to make you feel. And then we kind of walk you through there, like, how do you accomplish that? So it's very much, like I said, interior therapy by interior design. But then also, once you land on those answers, we teach you all of the practical tools of how to start and how to create a mood board, how to create a design plan. We talk about contractors and hiring contractors, and how to find good contractors, how to manage your project, which order should you even do your renovation? Do you do the floors first, or the cabinets, or do you do the tile, or do you do the lighting? What is like the process that you should roll out your project? And then we talk about installing it, and then we encourage you to have a party at the end.
Okay, yeah. Everybody loves a party.
Everyone does, and I did too.
Yes.
That's why I had a party, because then you enjoy the fruits of your labor, and everyone gets to enjoy it and celebrate it.
Well, just real quick, it is intimidating, I think, for me to do any sort of remodel. And so I think I've talked to other friends and they're on the same page. It's costly. You don't want to make the wrong decision.
Right.
You know, you don't want to have somebody in your house you can't trust, because a lot of times you're at work or busy when contractors are in. So I love that you walk people through that and the whole thought process of what do you want it to be like. So yeah.
Thank you.
And you do that with your mom. So I think that is really, a fun partnership to get to work with your mom.
Totally.
So, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned the stone cottage, and I will tell you, so my little stone cottage crush, I got to come to see the stone cottage in person. And what we're talking about is a home that you all purchased and fully renovated.
Yes.
It is gorgeous, and now have converted it into an Airbnb in Tulsa.
Yes.
And so I wanted you to talk a little about that process, and then we'll give some information so people can look up some videos, because you filmed the whole process as well. But what was that like, redoing the whole home that you're not even going to live in?
I know, right? It was amazing, and it was crazy, and everything went wrong that could have gone wrong. So even when you know what you're doing, things just go wrong. You just have to expect that. It's like a wedding. When you have a wedding, if you think everything's going to go to plan, you're going to be very disappointed. Even if you have the best team and the best planners. I remember someone gave me that advice. Just expect that one thing's going to go wrong, and when it does, just tell yourself, that's my one thing. That's great. Okay, it's over. Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But no, this house was great. My husband and I really wanted to buy a house that we could fix up ourselves. And we were kind of looking in these different neighborhoods over by the Expo Center and in that surrounding area. And everything we were finding had already been flipped. It was, a lower price point, but it was someone had already come in and put in, their own tile and things that we didn't really like. And I was going to rip it out anyway. So I was like, if we could only find it before some investor comes and flips it. And I guess that's a thing. These investor groups just buy up all these houses and flip them. And it's a business, which makes sense. But so anyway, Tyler was driving around. I was actually in New York City at the time, pregnant with our second baby. And I was there for work. And he was driving around, and it's the middle of winter, and he sees this sign that says for rent on this corner house, and then in pencil underneath it says or sale. And he takes a picture of it and he sends it to me, and he's like, oh my gosh, let's see how much this is. And so Mike looked into it for us, and sure enough, it was like the exact thing we were looking for. It was a total dump inside. It was totally needed like a full gut job, but the price was right. It was a great size house. It was a corner lot, so it was like kind of the worst house in the neighborhood, but it was also the biggest house in the neighborhood. So that had a lot going for it. And we just were like, okay, it was our first renovation project of a whole house that we had done that was ours. Which I will say 2020, looking back, wouldn't recommend doing that when you are pregnant with a baby, because that was very hard. It also was hard because we had just moved here. So we didn't necessarily, we've only been here for 3 years. We bought the house 2022, but we'd only been here for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years at the time. So we hadn't really found our people when it comes to contractors. That's when you live in a city and you do this for a living, you've got all your people forever and ever, you use every time, you trust. And so that was definitely new, which is a lot of people go through that, finding new contractors and people that you can rely on. Unfortunately, we had a contractor that wasn't the best to start with. He demoed a lot of the house, and then he moved. He didn't take off running like with anything. He told us he was moving, but when he signed on to do the job, he had committed to doing it, and very last minute had decided to kind of bail on the project, and didn't really provide us a ton of information on where we were at with everything. We kind of had to like piecemeal it together and it was very much a total headache and a mess. And the house kind of sat there for 6 months because I was about to have the baby. I was working on another project with a neighbor, a different Airbnb at the time. I had all the stuff going on with our courses, and I just had so much on my plate that I just was like, I just can't take one more thing. So that house sat there for quite a while as it was fully demoed and ready to move on to the next stage. And then once things calmed down, we kind of, luckily I had posted on Instagram about needing contractors. And there was a gal that lives here who's a real estate agent who had a team of brothers who she had used a ton of times on houses, on their own house, and recommended them. And they kind of did everything. I hired them first just to paint, but they ended up coming in and they also laid tile, and they installed my cabinets for me, and they did some plumbing stuff, like just installed some fixtures and things. So they were great. But anyway, we wanted to buy a house that we could really make our own. But really the ultimate goal with this particular property was, like I said, we've made videos for 10 years about basically our own homes, either clients' homes or our own homes. We'd never really made content about a house that like our viewers could come stay in. That would be a house we're designing for them. So that was kind of like my biggest goal. I felt like in Tulsa, there weren't a lot of really cool Airbnbs that are really well designed. But anyway, I just felt like there was a lack, like there was a need for that. And so I really wanted to create a space that caused people to want to travel to Tulsa, but then also get to stay in a beautifully designed home and get to watch the birthing of it and the growing of it and the renovating of it and like this transformation, and then get to see it in real life. It was such a cool concept to me. And so that was kind of the goal with the house. And yeah, once I had the baby and I got back on my feet, like about a month later, we really hit the ground running and finished up the project in like 3 months. And then we had partnered with some different furniture companies and stuff for the content, which took a little bit longer. And then we were able to open. And it was so fun. There were people that drove kind of from all over that came to see it in real life, which meant so much to me. These people that have been following along and just really wanted to be able to experience it. You know, when you post stuff online, you see numbers, but you don't meet these people. You don't know. You start to get like in your head, you don't realize those numbers actually equal real human souls that care as much as you do about these projects. And so when they show up, you're like, wow, this is so cool that you guys really are excited about this too. So that was really special. And yeah, so now we're open. It is currently listed on Airbnb. It's called the Stone Cottage. It is an actual stone cottage, which is why we named it that. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It sleeps 8, and it's a brand new house. Everything is brand new kitchen, brand new bathrooms, brand new electrical, brand new wiring, brand new plumbing, brand new air conditioning.
It really is brand new.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I thought was brilliant about this, because I got to come and see, the debut of the Stone Cottage at the party. Mm-hmm. But I loved seeing the before pictures that you posted on the wall in the room that we were in. So to look at that before and then see the after was breathtaking.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
One of my friends had encouraged me to do that, and I'm so glad that she did, because you really don't appreciate the after until you know where you started, until you know how it used to look, and then you can see, oh, this isn't just new furniture. This is like a new layout, or you moved a wall, or you put a closet over in the other corner. So yeah, that was definitely a fun experience. But we've had a great success with the bookings. We're booked pretty much. Some months were booked fully already, but every month has like at least 2+ weeks fully booked all the way through January of next year. Okay. And then we have a few bookings in the summer of next year already, which is crazy.
So you are busy. Yeah. You have a lot going on, and you're a mom of 2, married, a mom of 2. So if you could kind of share a little bit about, how you handle that busyness, I guess. Yeah. And maybe, any tips that you might be able to share.
Yeah. I think, it's always a learning process as a new mom. I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, so they're very close together, which is crazy. But, I believe that women can do anything they put their mind to. I believe you can have a career and you can also be a mom. But I honestly, in my journey, what I've learned is you cannot have a thriving, achieve every goal that you have in your career type of a experience in the same season as being a very involved mom. I believe you can have both in your life, but I don't believe they could be at the same time, at least in my experience. I feel like there's only so much time in a day. And you're either going to spend it pursuing all of your career goals, or you're going to spend it being there, to pick up your kid and to bring him to the grocery store with you and to take him to the park and take him to swim lessons. And if you choose to do those things, then your goals for your career are going to fade a little bit. If you choose to pursue the career, then you have to hire a nanny or a babysitter or somebody to come in and help take your kids to swim lessons in the park and have them cook for you or whatever, depending on how busy you are. You can't really do it all and be successful in both. And so I don't believe that it's a right or wrong choice, but I personally believe it is a choice that you have to make. And for me, after I had our second child, our business was growing, and there was just a lot of stuff. I was doing a lot of projects at the time. And I kind of had this moment of, because we do have a nanny that's at our house, and she's wonderful, and my kids love her, we love her, she's very much part of our family, but I had these moments of just seeing her on the porch swing with my baby outside, kind of playing with him, giving him a popsicle, and I was inside working, and I just had this moment of like, man, that girl is living my life. Like, she's living the life I want to live, which is being with my kids and having those moments. I felt like I would wake up, and by 9 o'clock, one was off to a little daycare, Mother's Day Out program, and the other one was just a newborn baby, but handed him off to the nanny. I went and got ready. I was gone all day, came home at 5, and then you only have so much time before they go to bed, And it was hard for me. It was, I think there's some women that can do that and they thrive in that. But for me personally in my life, I just felt like I was missing out so much. And it's a very hard choice because I love what I do. And I also feel very grateful that I do get to still have my brain working and get to be around adults and get to escape the, Legos and the spit up in your hair and get to put real clothes on and go to work. I didn't want to take that for granted. And I think the grass is always greener too. When you're in the mom mode, you're wishing you could get out of mom mode and go do your, go to work or be with friends or whatever. And then when you're doing those things, you're like, man, I miss my kids. I just want to be in my jammies sitting on the floor playing cars, you know? So anyway, for me, I think it had to be a choice. I've really, this year, I have pulled back a lot and said no to things, which is very hard for me. I like to say yes to everything, mostly because I don't want to let people down, or I see that they really want me to be involved in something, and so I really want to deliver and do that for them. Even though I know I'm not letting people down in real life, but there is something in there that I'm like, oh, I should say yes to this. I should do it. And I've just learned that there's a cost to all those things. You know, your time is so precious. And so as my kids were getting older and, you know, having 2 kids versus 1, it just felt so that pressure was there. Like, okay, I either need to go all in on my career and just accept the reality that I'm going to miss a lot, or I need to take a little bit of a step back and be home with my kids. And I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. You know, I think both kind of get a bad rap, and I think it's kind of just a personal choice. You have to decide what you want to do, and it truly is a very personal choice. But I think that both are very notable, and some women don't have a choice, right? Like, you know, I have friends who have worked, and they take home $100 at the end of the month because all the money they're paying for childcare is like, it's a wash. And then there's some friends that, you know, they can't afford to not work, and so they have to. And so I think it just comes down to your personal situation. And for us, I felt like I would never regret spending more time with my kids. I think I would regret putting my career first and not spending, you know, a lot of time with my kids in these early days. Once they're in school, I think that changes, you know, and even if they are in like a more of a Mother's Day out program once or twice a week, I think that could change for my business and my career. But in this season, I'm not taking on any more projects right now. I'm just kind of taking a little bit of a break in that regard. I'm still doing, you know, Instagram and YouTube and making videos in those pockets of my day when the kids are napping or whatever. Maybe one day a week I'll take away to work. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just thriving. And, you know, I'm happier. I feel like I'm just living my purpose. And I love to cook. And I have this last 8-9 months, I have been so busy with work that because this whole transition of me stepping back is very new. I mean, in the last 2 months is when it's happened. But, and even that, it was still a thing until the Stone Cottage was done. But I did feel like, you know, I didn't get to cook. I was just like running around trying to get this done and that done. And this last week I've been cooking more, and I'm like, man, I am just a happier person because I'm doing the things that I love. And that's such a small thing. But I think just kind of trying to pinpoint the things that make you happy. Maybe it's going for walks. Maybe it's, you know, spending time with your friends, going to coffee or lunch or whatever. Just trying to find what those things are and make time for it, because I think there's this hustle culture right now that's like, you need to work and achieve. And while that's great, and there's maybe some truth to that, you also need to fill your soul and to figure out what that is. If that's spending time with your kids and cooking, then you need to make time for that. So anyway, well, and I will say, I never want to give the impression that I do it all. I think it's very easy on social media to watch other people's lives. And, you know, as a social media influencer, if you will, you probably share maybe 10 minutes out of your day, maybe 15 on Instagram stories. And then on YouTube, it's not really even about my life. It's about interior design, or sometimes it's about life, but very rarely. So you only see 10 minutes of these people's day. And I do this too. And you assume so much, but there's so much of their day you never see, right? You don't see the times when they're sad or depressed. You don't see the times when their kids are throwing fits. Like, my kids aren't perfect, but I've even watched other people and gone, wow, their kids never throw a fit. They have just the most wonderful toddler. They must be a great parent. What are they doing that I'm not doing? But in all reality, they're totally having fits. They're just not airing it online, which they shouldn't. You know, they're not supposed to. But we just jump to these conclusions. So I never want to put... You know, I don't talk about having a nanny all the time. I've talked about it before, but it's not like all the time. And so I try to be as transparent as possible, that the things that I don't enjoy doing, I try to find, you know, people that I can bring in that can help me with those things. And that way I can thrive with my kids or with my business on times that I have those little pockets. So.
Good. Thanks for giving us a sneak peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, of course.
About what it's like. And it's funny how you even watch people and think, how are they doing all this? So
totally. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it's just such a gift and an honor to be online and have a following of any amount of people. I mean, I think we all are influencers. Honestly, we all have a following. You have people that follow you, that watch your life. If you post stuff about your life, or even if it's just friends that you talk about your life, they observe it. But I think it's such an honor to have people that do follow, and people message me that, they love seeing stuff about my kids. It just brings them such joy. Whether they've left that season, their moms that are empty nesters. Honestly, I have a lot of women that are like that, who they're just like, oh, I remember when we were potty training, and we went through that. Gosh, those were the days, And so that's really sweet to be able to like kind of refresh those seasons and bring that back for people. And just that people are so kind and loving. It's very rare that I find a hateful or hurtful message in my DMs, which is very rare in social media. There's just a lot of mean people out there. So I think is a God thing, that I just have I have a small corner on the internet of very nice, lovely people. And I feel very blessed and honored to be able to be a part of their lives every day. It's a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, what you're putting out is so great and positive, and it is real life too, but that kind of comes back to you, I think, and the people that are following you. Okay, so in wrapping up, you kind of alluded to this, you're now cooking a little more, but my theme for 2023 is how you're living purposefully. So if you want to share a little bit about your purpose, or how you're living purposefully.
Yeah, I really do feel that motherhood is, two things. Motherhood is definitely my purpose. I do believe I was born to be a mom. I love my kids so much, and I love being a mom. I just feel very grateful that I get to be a mom and that I get to have these sweet babies. I mean, I want 5 kids, so I want to have a lot more babies. Oh. But I do want to space them out a little further than we did with the first 2. But yeah, just being able to be a homemaker, I do think there's been a cultural shift away from that. And I think that's just how it works, Steve. The pendulum swing of, the 50s, everyone was at home and women wanted that independence. And so I think the 90s to the 2000s, we kind of went the other way. And I think I'm kind of settling back in the middle there, where it's like I really enjoy cooking, and I really enjoy being with my kids and making crafts and like doing all of these things. Like, it does fill my tank. Like the other day I was trying to teach Sawyer this little book that had letters in it. And I was like, I realized I was having fun teaching him about the alphabet. And I told Tyler, I'm like, I mean, I don't think I'll ever homeschool, but this is actually kind of fun. Homeschool is much harder than what I'm doing right now, but I actually enjoy teaching our kids and just talking about life with them. And, a 2-year-old who learns to talk wants to talk all the time and ask why about everything. So I'm trying to find the patience in that, but just enjoying being a mom. And then I'd also say, my husband pointed out the other day, honestly, having an Airbnb is like, I'm learning it might be my purpose, because I love hosting like parties and events and just having people in our home. And now I get to do it like every week. I have new people that stay in our Airbnb, and I learn about why they're there. And then I make them this gift basket, and I have like special things for their kids. And I don't know if that'll last forever, but I mean, I've gotten gift cards, and I got like local beers for the dads. And Tyler's like, you are lighting up. You love this. And that is just so fun for me. And I don't have to have them in my home. I can have them in this other house, but like, do make them feel special and enjoy their trip and make it memorable. And I just love doing that. So that's been kind of a fun new thing, because I'm managing the property for now and getting to just see what it's like, and it's been really cool. So, and then I also think the last thing would just be my faith, and really prioritizing that. I think that's something that, just having that quiet time with the Lord is very important to me. And I believe there's seasons, and especially when you have young children, where you're not going to be necessarily up in the morning, every morning, having your Bible study the way maybe you did when you were a single woman or when your kids are out of the house. I think it's just a different season, but just prioritizing having that time alone with the Lord. And I actually just this year signed up. Do you know what BSF is? Bible Study Fellowship. It's like a Bible study group that's all around the world, and they go through the same book, and it's not affiliated with any certain denomination of Christianity. It's just like all denominations go to BSF. It's not through a church. It's like its own thing. and you really study the Bible. It's really, really cool. But they needed children's leaders this year, and it's a huge commitment to do it, and I've never been able to do it before because of work. I've always said no. And then they asked me again this year, and I didn't want to do it again because I knew the commitment level. But I was like, man, I feel like I'm going to really love this. Like, I love kids. I love the Lord. I love teaching and being a part of that. And it would be a sacrifice of time, but like that could be really cool. So it's just even prioritizing that, which in my selfishness was like, I don't know if I really want to do that right now, but I do think there'll be so much blessing that comes out of that, and just prioritizing other people and their kids and teaching them about the Lord. I mean, the kids program with BSF, anyone that has been in it or knows about it, it's like so cool. So even the kids go through the lessons that the adults go through, but it's all pared down for their age. So it's like they walk through the same section of scripture and they learn it, on a felt board as opposed to like some intense study. But it's really special and sweet.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And is that in addition to the church that you attend? Or?
Yeah. So It's not through any church. It's like BSF is like its own organization, and they have them in pretty much every major city in the world.
Okay.
So other countries, like they're all over. And you can just Google it and join a chapter. It's free. Childcare is free. It's all free. You buy the book if you want it, or you can print it yourself. But yeah, it's just, you read through whatever section of scripture they're focusing on that week. There's questions that you answer. And then every week when you go in, you have like a little small group of women that you sit down and review the questions with. And then there's like a little lecture at the end that you can go to if you want to be a part of that.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the children's program is why a lot of young moms do it, I think. Because like my son, the other night I was like, before I've ever joined BSF to be a children's leader, I was singing to Sawyer. He's 2.5, and I thought, he's starting to really talk. We should start singing like some cute little Christian nursery rhyme, whatever, Jesus Loves Me. We hadn't really thought to like sing that at bed, and so I start singing it thinking I'm going to teach it to him, and he starts singing it back to me. I'm like, where in the world did you learn this? And I was talking to a friend, and she goes, oh, they teach it at BSF. So when he was 2 years old, they were singing Jesus Loves Me and Jesus Loves the Little Children, and he knows all of these songs that I never taught him. And I'm like, that is so cool that this group of women, that are volunteers, are just totally teaching your kids such beautiful things in the Lord. So anyway, it's a very sweet program, and it's a great community. And I was in a group last year. I had just had a baby. I think there was like 4 other women that had just had babies. So that was really cool. It's like if you're looking for new relationships with different women that are in that same stage, it's all ages, like women that are 80 and women that are 20 go to BSF. So it's really cool.
How neat. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I have enjoyed learning more about you and just getting to spend this time with you today, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.